Good evening, Baruchim Habayim, Rabotai. Welcome to another edition of our Thursday night's class. Tonight's class was sponsored by a good friend of mine, Uri, who called me this morning and he said, do you have a name for tonight's class? So I said, no. He said, he doesn't live here. He lives out of the country. He said, I see your texts on the groups from the classes, and I saw that last week somebody sponsored for the donors that help out at the Friday thing. He says, I want to do a double thing. For the next 10 weeks, I want to sponsor for them and match whatever they give. I said, I love you, Uri. Thank you very much. And that was our conversation. So, Baruch Hashem, you have a gentleman who just sponsored 10 weeks of Shiurei Torah for your success. Because Baruch Hu should help, that the Koach HaTorah should help you be matzliach in a big way. And now it's dollar to dollar being matched for the next 10 weeks, everything that we do in our tzedakah v'chesed. I feel obligated not to discuss, because I don't know enough to discuss, but just to mention that Am Yisrael lost a lot of giants in the past week. A lot of really great people. First, somebody who I personally am indebted to, Rav Kalman Krohn from Lakewood, who was an amazing, huge Talmid Chacham, and big Baal Musar and Ashkafa. He taught us all Musar and Ashkafa on his many speeches that he gave, but especially on Motzei Shabbatot, and about tzedakah in a way that there's no way to explain. He didn't have a dollar to his name. People trusted him with money, and he used to distribute. Somebody said by his funeral, $15 million. I think that number is an insult. I personally know that he did more than that in a short period of time. Numbers that you wouldn't believe. And he did everything in such a humble way, in such a respectful way, that there's no way to explain. A gentleman told me a story after the funeral over there and everything else. Lakewood Yeshiva, doesn't stop learning for any reason. And they stopped to respect his funeral, and they made, and all the rabbis spoke. It was 4.5 hours of speeches. That's most people you could summarize their life in 30 seconds in the best case scenario. If there's 4.5 hours of what to say about somebody, that's a pretty impressive thing. Of Kalman Krohn. And so somebody told me today, or either last night or today, that he made a wedding recently for his 6th child. This guy still learns in Kollel till today. Some girls don't go out with guys because he doesn't have a degree yet, so how's he going to support 2 people? This guy is already married, he has 6 children, and he's supporting his grandchildren and everything, and Baruch Hashem, it's working. So he says when he was making his 6th wedding, so it was tight, 6 weddings, it's not an easy thing. So if Kalman Krohn comes to his house one night with an envelope with a very large sum of cash, and he tells him, listen, I don't know how to estimate how much money you need, and I don't know what the story is and whatever, and I don't want you to feel uncomfortable also. So here's the deal. I'm leaving this envelope over here, and if there's anything left, then send it back to me after the wedding. And if not, then if you need more, then let me know. It's you have to have such a brilliance in tzedakah and such an ayin tovah in order to look at things that way and do things that way, that it just shows the character of a person. But when a person only does that, that's beautiful. But when a person on top, before that, was a huge Talmid Chacham and had tons of Talmidim and everything, and with all of that, was still able to find time to do that, that's an amazing thing. So that was one thing that I felt obligated to mention. Another one, which I don't really have many stories that I want to share right now, but except for one, is that there was a great woman who passed away on Shabbos. Her name was Rebbetzin Kozlowitz, at the age of 94. She was my Rebbe from Halacha, where I got smicha through the Lakewood Yeshiva program. Rav Yitzchak Kozlowitz, and I learned Charusa with him for many years. His mother, Shivadel Chaim Tovim. I knew this lady for a lot of years. She was a widow for many years as well. An amazing person on many fronts, brilliant person as well. I'm going to share with you a story that's not really directly related to her, it's indirectly related to her, but there's a great lesson to learn from it.
Thank you, Rabbi.
And if I shared it in the past, you'll forgive me, it's just time appropriate with her passing. This is before I was in Lakewood, when Rav Shneur Cutler was still alive. So Rav Shneur used to go into Brooklyn sometimes to raise funds for the yeshiva. And for other reasons too, weddings or whatever. But he didn't drive, he didn't have a car, it wasn't like today. So it was a pain in the neck each time. So he would look for somebody who had a car that was willing to take him and bring him back. And one day he went, a different son of this woman who was not alive for a bunch of years, my dear friend, who was my dear friend Rav Nata Kazlitz, Zechat Tzadik Livracha. Rav Shneur went to Rav Nata and told Rav Nata, tonight I have to get to Brooklyn for a wedding, and can you take me? So Nata liked taking up Shneur because then you got to talk to him privately and you were able to pick his brain on subjects. So he told him, sure, I could take you. But I just got to pre-warn the Rosh Shiva that my car, is a borderline car. You need a good tefillas haderech that it should make it. And the second thing is, I don't go into New York a lot, because back then it was very challenging for the type of cars they had, and the roads weren't as good as today and whatever. And I have a mother who lives, I think then she lived in Manhattan on the Lower East Side, who's an almana, a widow. And if I'm already going into Brooklyn, I want to go back on the way home to Manhattan and say hello to my mother, and then, so the Rosh Yeshiva is going to have to wait. It's going to be inconvenient for you. It'll take another hour out of your life. And Rav Shneur said, sure, no problem. I agree. This is worth it for me. Give me a ride. Why not? I'll do it. They went. Nata told me the story, and then the mother used to tell me the story all the time afterwards. After Nata passed away already still. They went to the wedding, then they went to the mother. There was no cell phones then and that, so the mother didn't even know. They caught the mother by surprise, knock on the door. Who's there? Her son, which that alone was exciting to her, to see her son. And Rav Shneur Kotler, the Shiva of Lakewood. One of the ladies, imagine you woke up tonight and heard a knock on your door, you open the door, you see, I don't know, Rav Yitzchak Yosef standing outside your door. You'd probably like, what? What are you doing? Like, that's not an expected visit. Definitely not for a woman. So she let them in, and Nata went with her to the kitchen, and Rav Shneur went to the living room. And Nata knew Rav Shneur is going to have to wait 10-15 minutes while he talks to his mother. So he went to the bookshelf of his father, Zechat Tzadik Livracha, and he took out the Chumash with an Orach Chaim, which then was a rare commodity. And he gave Rav Shneur the Chumash with the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. Like, they should have what to do in the meantime while he's waiting. Fine, he finishes talking to his mother. A few minutes later, the mother comes in, thanks Rav Shneur for coming up, what a schus. Rav Shneur gives the mother a blessing, and they leave. They drive back to Lakewood. Nata was still in his first years of marriage. He was a newlywed practically. They come to Lakewood, and Rav Shneur tells Nata, listen, your wife's going to be worried where you are, because late already. So here's what I want you to do. Drop me off at home, then go home to your wife, tell her you're safe, but tell her that I still need you, and come back to my house emergency. And then Rav Shneur tells him, and I'm very tired, and I need strength for tomorrow's shiur, so please do it quickly. He didn't understand the emergency. I was just with you for hours. You could, if there's something to talk about, we could have spoke. But Rav Shiva says, you don't ask questions. He went home, he told his wife, Rav Shiva called me back, emergency. So I said, go, of course. He comes into Rav Shneur's house. Rav Shneur sits him down in the living room. He says, well, a minute. He goes into the kitchen, he makes him a hot tea, and cuts some cake up, and he brings it to him. He says, make him his onod. Fine, can't say no to Rosh Shiva. He makes a make a shakol. Then he says, you know what, I think I have chocolate also. He goes, brings him some chocolates. Guest doesn't make another blessing, but whatever. 10 minutes later, he says, your wife's waiting for you. This is not fair to keep her waiting. Go home. Nata's looking, what? You said there was an emergency. He says, Rabbi, what did I miss here? What's the emergency? He says, the emergency is a life lesson. That when you have a guest coming into your house, even if he's the greatest rabbi, don't shove him a sefer. Give him something to eat. And Revitzin Kazlowitz, that just passed away this Shabbos, used to love telling me the story over. She says, this fits your whole theme and motto of giving and helping and doing. It's not your idea. Rav Shneur already gave my son Musar about that. He says, you know how many cakes afterwards I used to try and send Rav Shneur because I felt guilty all the time to try and make up that he came to my house and I didn't give him something? That's what he said. By the way, I have a personal story as a result of this story. Once I said this story in a shiur somewhere in Florida. It was in Boca Raton, Florida. And I was staying by some family's house. And the family that I was staying by, I know them, they're medical professionals, and we knew each other from business relationships, but they're not Shomer Torah Mitzvot. And they innocently went to buy me things that I can eat, because I was going to be there the next morning before my flight. But they forgot that to me, if there's a D after the OU, that makes it not kosher. So it didn't really help, whatever they bought. But at the same time, you know, you don't want to insult somebody, especially somebody who is a Jew and whatever and that. Yeah. So I jokingly told them my regular line, I'm sorry, I don't eat Chalav Yishmael, and even though it's my first cousin, and whatever. And we left it at that. And then the woman tells me a couple weeks later, she calls me and she says, listen, when are you in your office in Florida next? And at that point, my office in Florida was a different area in Florida completely. Figure an hour and 45-minute drive from where she lived. So I said, I'll be there Tuesday morning. So she said, okay, I'll see you Tuesday at 10. So I figured probably maybe another good sale because she was a good customer. She comes to the office with like trays, literally trays full of food. Enough for like a bunch of them, like half the employees probably. And I'm like, what's this about? He's like, look, it's all sealed and it's all Chalav Yisrael. So I said, what's this? He says, I was listening to the recording of the class. She didn't even care. I was staying by them and she didn't even care enough to come to the class that I gave over there. I was staying by them as a business acquaintance, not as a speaker or a Jewish speaker. She said, I was curious what you had to say when you were here in the neighborhood. So I listened to the class that you gave and I heard that story and it's true. Here we're busy feeding you, telling you we bought you special kosher, which wasn't even kosher for you at the end, and this and that. We didn't think of being practical and figuring out what your needs are. I learned something from that. I like that attitude. You see, it could have an impact. What's the great part? What was my comeback there? I said, to drive an hour and 45 minutes to bring me food to my office is heroic. But I'm going to disappoint you. In one phone call, I can get one of the local places that I trust to deliver me food. So I don't need you to drive an hour and 45 minutes. But what happens if I want to come back to Boca tonight and I want to eat in your house? Can't do it. There's nothing to eat. I said, so if that story really meant something, then we need a kosher kitchen now. This happened, I think, 8 or 9 years ago. We fast forward a bunch of years. Her house, Halavai, my house, should be as kosher as hers. We ship her meat from New Jersey from a private shechita because that's the only way they'll eat meat. Otherwise, they won't eat meat. I don't know about the other mitzvahs. I have no idea. But that's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Matzah for Pesach, the amount of interrogation I went through, the FDA doesn't give us that hassle in manufacturing when we make medications. Where did it come from? How do we know for sure? Pay extra, it doesn't make a difference, money now, I want the best, only the best. And I think she wears pants still today. But this mitzvah suddenly hit her from this story and whatever, and yeah, so my house has to be kosher. And her pride is, when she sees Orthodox Jews, my kitchen is kosher enough that any rabbi of any sect in the world can eat by me comfortably. There's no questions. I cover all grounds of every extra, every this, every that. Unbelievable story. You see sometimes, a story they hear from a good person that was done sincerely by Gdolei Olam like Rav Shneur has a big impact for generations later on how to look at things. But tonight I'm not here to talk about Chasat Orchin. That was just as a personal obligation to people that did great for me that left this world this week that I felt obligated to mention. I don't know if any of you boys or girls knew the Cohen family, or her maiden name was Falik, who passed away this week. Another Jewish hero, 38-year-old woman, left 9 kids behind. Hashem should give him strength to go on. But there's no way to explain what a tzaddikus means. There's no anything we'll say would be downplaying it, so it's just not fair to say. But emunah through the toughest times, that being sick, seeing 9 children and knowing that your days in the world are numbered, and to have such emunah, like not to cry once, not to be phased once, not to complain once, everything happy, everything positive, to run a happy, positive home in the most treacherous circumstances and times. These are legends in Klal Yisrael that, nobody had the guts to say this by her funeral. I don't have the guts to say this because who am I? But at the end of the day, these are the Rachel Imenos of today's generation. These are stories that belong 1,000 years ago in history, probably even prior to that. And Hashem gave us the schus that we had such people. And when we lose such people, on one hand, it's a big tragedy and a very sad thing. On the other hand, there is a benefit. And the benefit is that Chazal teach us that the merits, the qualities that they had They leave in this world, and whoever grabs them can much easier accomplish a spiritual growth level than otherwise. So that means right now, this week especially in this world, in Torah, in Chesed, in Kabbalat Yisuim Ba'ava, in Emunah, and that, there's so much power on the East Coast right now that could be grabbed by anybody. It's a good opportunity to take a chizuk in such a thing. It's an amazing chizuk. And one of the things that she said many times that is a little harsh and out of character for me to say, but sometimes we also have to hear something that's not sugar-coated 100%, like I normally try to do, is that her motto in her life was, this is what her dad testified about her, is, and this was way before she was sick, when I come up to Shamayim, is my excuse for not doing this mitzvah or this chesed going to be good enough or not? Let's break it down to practical terms. Your friend has a flat tire. I'm using this example because this week I had one, so it's just my post-trauma coming out. And now you got to get somewhere, emergency, and there's no car. You got to run flat tires. There's no spare either. You got nothing to do. You're totally at the mercy of the dealership. And it's a holiday week. Everything's closed. Good luck. Try Uber, 27-minute wait. That's not going to work. We got to get somewhere far, emergency. Calls you up. Listen, it's Xmas Day. You're not working anyway. There's a chesed to do. Either lend me your car and stay home, or pick me up and give me your car. And take me to where I got to go. But there's a chesed, an emergency. Something has to be done. But it's your vacation day. You were planning on staying in pajamas all day. And now you're going to have to get out of bed. It's a tragedy. It's a chuban bayit. What's going to be? The pillow's going to miss you. And, we're laughing because we think, of course we're going to do it. If you want me to experiment, I'm willing to do it. You'll see how many times you won't. The pillow wins every time. Tired, I never sleep on a regular night. I go sleep late. Finally, I have one day off from work. I don't have my stupid boss on my head. No emails, nobody harassing me. Leave me alone. I just want to stay in bed the whole day. How do you beat that? How do you beat that? Kal v'choma 1,000 times over if it's a harder challenge than a pillow. It's actually sacrificing something that's important to you. How do you beat that? So, what she taught the Jewish nation was that the assessment is, when I come to Shamayim and Hashem says, why didn't you go give this person a ride that day? Is my excuse of, I needed to stay in bed, going to fly or not? If it's going to work, because I'm proud to say it and I have no problem saying it, so great, stay in bed. And there are times that you should stay in bed, by the way. Shulchan Aruch, there's such a concept, chayecha kodmim l'chayei achicha. There are times you have to put your life first. But if you're not sure, then there's a different rule. This is a rule that Rabbi Eliyahu Levine once told me that happened to him when his wife, Lo Aleinu V'Lo Alechem, was sick. She's not in this world anymore. When Rebbe Levine's Zichron Livracha, big tzaddik, Rabbi Eliyahu Levine, Avdil Ben Chaim L'Chaim, one of the great Talmidei Chachamim of our generation, was sick. So once they were on the way home driving from a hospital after treatments, and it was Friday afternoon, and there was snow, or I don't know, the weather issues, and it came Shkia, and now what? You can't drive. So she said, Cholesh yesh bo sakana al pi halacha, they were allowed to take a goy and whatever. She didn't want to because she said there's no sakana right now. If in an hour from now there'll be a sakana, then she'll take a goy. Whatever. They stopped at some gas station. It was 2 minutes before Shabbat, 3 minutes before Shabbat. They explained the guy in the gas station, it was an Indian goy, the whole situation. He was extremely understanding and accommodating. And he said you could stay inside, you could take whatever you want for free. They said just give us 2 candles and matches quick, because she wanted to light candles for Shabbat before it was too late. He gave her, he let her light candles in the store, like whatever, in a gas station store. You see Hashem protects tzaddikim. And they stayed there. An hour and a half or 2 hours, I don't remember the exact number. A couple hours in, her pain levels were going up very drastically, and it really became a danger for her to stay there in the gas station. And at that point, her husband Paskin al pi halacha that the goy should call a non-Jewish driver for her to drive her back to Lake with her kids to take care of her. But he doesn't have to be there because she has kids to take care of her. So he doesn't have to go. He has no head to go. Which I'm not saying that's halacha l'maaseh. There's different opinions in this. So he stayed in the gas station the whole Shabbos, 26 hours, 27 hours. Luckily it was a 24-hour station, so at least he was able to stay inside. While she went home. Saturday afternoon, when this guy who helped him on Friday evening came back, and he sees this rabbi still there, at that point he couldn't handle it anymore. That means he didn't sleep, the way he kept kashrus, he probably didn't even eat anything. Nothing, and he's confined in a room, he can't walk out of the, And he goes over to him and he doesn't listen. It's bad weather, it's cold, you're in an uncomfortable place, your wife's extremely sick, you're this, that. You don't think if you would drive home now, your God would understand? He would understand, he would get it. It wouldn't be such a big deal. And Rabbi Yaakov told him, I'll tell you the truth, logically I also think he would get it. But I don't know for sure if that's true or not. And once I find out, it's too late. And that risk I'm not willing to take. That's a big, big ruler for life. If you're not sure if God's going to accept the excuse, then maybe it's worth skipping it. Because once you find out, it's too late. Now, that's not to scare anybody, and no, we're all going to Gan Eden, especially in this generation, straight. There's no middleman even. Today's Nisyonos, we're all tzaddikim. But at the same time, yeah, sometimes we got to push the limit a little further. So that was the off-subject obligations. Now I want to, with whatever time's left, utilize it to bring out what I think is an extremely important point in the parasha and a theme that we go with our whole lives. Many times we feel that we pray and pray and pray and it's just not working. And I know all the answers. No prayer goes unanswered. Sometimes God says yes, sometimes God says no, right? I once gave a whole class like that. And then you don't know what's good for you. You don't see the whole puzzle. We've given classes in many different angles to discuss this subject. Tonight I want to take a new approach. It's not new, it's a very old approach, but one that we haven't spoken about. From the Sefer Hasidim, that directly ties into the parasha. We'll try and build a puzzle with a few good stories, and hopefully it'll be a schus for us in this world and in the next. Rav Yehuda Hasid, in Sefer Hasidim, in letter Taf Kuf Nun Dalid, comes Rav Yehuda Hasid and writes, Yesh mitpalel v'ne'ena, v'yesh mitpalel ve'eino ne'ena. There's some people that pray and they get answered. Other people that pray and it seems like they don't get answered. Hatam, what's the reason? Comes Rav Yehuda Hasid and writes, Lefi shetzar chavero ve'elbono, eino ma'ale al libo. Somebody who doesn't feel the pain, the shame, the embarrassment, the discomfort, whatever it may be, of his friend, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't answer his prayers. The other one that Hashem does answer his prayers is because he's a person that feels somebody else's pain the same way the person himself feels it. And he continues, I'm skipping a few words just to shorten it. Lefi she'aya lo lachshov. This is the way that he should have had to think. Ilu hayiti b'tzar shel zeh. If I would have been in that person's situation, hayiti tzarich litpalel alav. I would pray, right? V'katuv v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You should love your neighbor or your friend like you love yourself. U'ma'achar she'ino mitzta'er b'tzar hatzadik, lo yitachen sheyeh ne'ena. Because he doesn't have suffering, as a result of somebody righteous who's suffering, who's going through a hard time, so Hashem says, if that's the case, there's no way that your prayers could ever be answered. This is a frightening Rav Yehuda Chassid. Lekach, kol hatfilot v'atachnunim, comes Rav Yehuda Chassid and says a chidush, which gives us a lot of hope. All the prayers, tiknum, and Chazal said how you should say Amidah. Pay attention to the words. B'lashon rabim, plural. Doesn't say rifa'eini, make me healthy. Rifa'einu, plural, make us healthy. And he says, he goes through a whole list. Re'ei b'onyenu, riva riveinu, everything plural. Look through the whole Shmoneh Esrei, it's all like that. Where does it say something singular? V'nafshi ka'afar lakol tiyeh. When it comes to being humble, it says that about you say that about yourself. Don't teach other people to be humble. Be humble yourself. But when it comes to praying, benefits, it's always Sim shalom aleinu. Everything public. Everything's public. Even not in Shmoneh Esrei, in other parts of davening. I mean, for example, the first thing that came to my mind that's not specific, Avinu Malkeinus are all built around public requests. Hashem should help Klal Yisrael. everything general. Why? Because if somebody prays in a way that his prayers are all individualized, then at that point for sure Hashem throws the prayer right back in his face. He says, what? He's such a narcissistic lunatic that everything revolves around you? What about other people that are suffering? So at least we cover up for it by Rifa'enu, as if we mean it. But hopefully one day we'll get to the level of meaning it. And that's the goal of tonight's shiur, that when we pray for ourselves, we're thinking about others as well. If you want to know, in my humble opinion, why many tzaddikim were big bal moifsim, so some tzaddikim said about themselves and what zchut they merited to make such big miracles. But others didn't say it about themselves. One of the reasons may be because these tzaddikim felt every Jew's suffering. I have a friend, I mentioned him many times, he's from the Spiegel family, who had the zchut to be Mishamesh of Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzadik Levacha, for many years. And he told me that he once had the guts to ask Moshe Feinstein why he doesn't read the newspaper. You know, you have to be a little wild to ask Moshe why he doesn't read a newspaper, but he was close to Moshe. And Moshe told him, there's not kosher things in there, I can't read it. So he said, no, but now they came out with a Jewish newspaper, a religious newspaper. And it's Al Taharat HaKodesh. There's no problem at all. So Moshe said, that for sure I can't read. That's out of the question. So he said, what? He said, that's going to kill me. So he said, what? The one that's not kosher, he didn't say he's going to kill you. The one that's kosher, he says, going to kill you. If anything, it should be the other way around. So he said, you don't understand. The one that's not kosher is going to kill my neshama and it can ruin my olam haba. So that for sure I'm not going to read. Why would I lose my olam haba? The one that's kosher, what does it talk about? Jewish things. What's going on in Israel, Jewish problems. He said, just from the headlines alone, by feeling that much pain of the Jewish nation, I would die. I would have a heart attack on the spot. Because you want to kill me up? That's why I don't read newspapers. And if Moshe said something, it wasn't an exaggeration. Moshe never said a word unless he meant it literally 100%. That means we had tzaddikim in our generation, Moshe was 25 years ago about, a little over, that were able to feel somebody's pain to the point that it can kill them. Physically, not in theory. It's a level of Noseh B'olim Chaviro. So of course when Moshe went and promised my friend's wife that the doctor said she'll never have children, that don't worry, you'll have a very big family, that can I know her, she just had her 13th child. The doctors wrote her off, she can never have kids, she just had her 13th child. And she said that she thinks that Moshe told her she'll have 14, so she still believes she'll have another one, and she's not a youngster right now. So this is a double medical question that there's no possible way to explain. A tzaddik like that who feel, so when this lady came into him as a young girl, right before Moshe was nifta, it was in the last months of Moshe's life, and said that, you know, I just got married and the doctor said I'll never have kids, but Moshe, that was enough to kill him. So Hashem needed him in the world, so he said, okay, tzaddik, tell her she'll have kids, and everything will be fine. Now you could be happy. That was the level of these tzaddikim. Rav Yochanan writes in his Sefer Dat Chochmah Musar that he quotes a Gemara. The Gemara says in Bava Metzia Chaf Gimel Amud Aleph, Tashet Choshech Vayhi Laila Bo Tirmos Kol Chayto Ya'ar. Right, it's a pasuk. So the Gemara says, Eilu Reshaim Shedomim Lechayot Shebayar. What's darkness? Evil people that are. What's the parable of evil people? Beasts in the forest. Like, first of all, what do we need this for? It's like, what are we trying to learn from this? So comes Rabbi Yochanan and he says something that's amazing. He said, what's the difference between a chaya in the yar and, let's say some other animal? He says that an animal that lives in the forest, in the wild, has to feed himself somehow. So how does he feed himself? By eating another animal. Right? That's the way it works. Cats eat mice and so on, you know, whatever. That was the easy example. Comes Rabbi Yochanan writes, comes the Gemara and says, what's called choshech? What's the darkest person in the world? The lowest level you can get to? A person who will benefit on somebody else's suffering. There's nothing lower than that. What's the highest level you can get to? A person that will feel somebody else's dark spot. That's the difference between a rasha and a tzaddik. Unbelievable. Rabbi Yochanan, the pioneer of Baalei Musar. Kamal Avod ben Ali Shur in the second chelik, wonderful sefer to learn, by the way. And he writes that if we ask ourselves, what's the obligation that Chazal teach us that a person has to be noseh be'olim chaveiro? Noseh be'olim chaveiro, the little, more or less literal translation is to carry the weight of the yoke with your friend. He says, if you look in the Torah, there's no such mitzvah. There's nowhere in the Torah that says, be noseh be'olim chaveiro. It doesn't exist. So where's this chiyuv from? There's such a big deal that, so he says that the halacha obligates us from where? From a pasuk, that we have to go in the ways of God. Ve'alachta bidrachav. What does that mean? If that's the case, this is one of the foundations of faith. Because if you believe there's a God and you emulate His ways, this is one of the ways of showing that you're emulating His ways. And he quotes over there, there's so many psukim that show that Hashem is with us in Galut. For example, V'shav Hashem lokecha et shvutcha v'richamecha. Hashem's going to bring you with Him out of Galut, exile. That means when we're in exile today, God's with us in exile. And so many other things. Imo anochi b'tzara, and Rav lists many things. Comes Rav Molbe and writes these words when he summarizes the subject. Avodah kashai, it's a very, very hard work. Likanes letoch matzavo shel adam shesovel, to walk in the shoes of somebody who's suffering, ad shemargishim mamash betzaro, until you literally feel the other person's pain. Ma rechoka hi midah zu mehaba'at hishtatfut betzar. How far is this from expressing condolences? I want to tell you, as somebody who sat shiva on a brother, on a younger brother, that I was very close to. The most painful part of it wasn't his death we accepted in faith, was my loss in faith in human common sense. From that day on, I literally gave up on human common sense. Text message, I'm so sorry to hear the news. That's what human life is worth, a text message? Second of all, what do you know about it? Sorry. You know what it means, you know what it feels. Did you just live in a hospital for 4.5 years straight and spend all your money and life and everything else to save somebody's life and then at the end have to bury him? You're so sorry. Nichum Avelim today is not even worth a phone call anymore. It's a text message. I don't think that comes from bad people. I think that comes from the loss of all human intelligence. There's nothing left anymore. It's just such a loss of sensitivity to what somebody else is going through or what somebody else's situation is. Nobody cares. Literally nobody cares. When I walk through, and I want to say the good part afterwards, which is 99% of the time, so don't take this as an example, it's common. But sometimes when I walk through some hospitals, especially pediatric hospitals that I volunteer in, and I see kids alone that are 7, 8 years old in the middle of the afternoon and are bored, that are Jewish kids, besides my heart bleeding, I get angry. Nobody cares. I understand the parents have to go home because, their life was destroyed with this and they have other kids at home too that we can't ruin them either. But nobody had the common sense to say, hey, I'm going to skip school today because nothing's going to happen if I'm going to know a little less history and instead I'll go spend some time with a young kid who's not going to be lonely in a hospital. I want to ask every Jewish mother that has children if she ever thought about Franklin or one of these, or Roosevelt, or I don't know, whatever else they taught her while she was diapering her child. And if she thinks that her child's diaper came out better as a result of the history and social studies she learned in school. I want to ask career people that are not in political science majors if everything they learned pretty much up to their masters ever helped them even one iota in their life going forward. So to miss one day of that, no way in the world. But on the other hand, a kid's being lonely, who's scared as it is because he's in a frightening environment, that's okay. It's again, we lost our sensitivity to other people's pain. We lost our sensitivity to other people's pain. It's that simple. I once found out, and I wasn't supposed to find out about this, crazy story. Crazy. There's some group, a WhatsApp group that I'm part of, that deals with arranging food last second for in different hospitals that we have access to for people that are in a hospital that doesn't have, most hospitals today, Baruch Hashem, has a Bikur Cholim and That's why I said 99% of Jewish patients are treated like kings. It's unbelievable. Between all these Bikuch Cholims and organizations, they do wonderful, wonderful work. There's no way to describe it. Just the organization Beinishu Ben Achiv, what this lady, people call her Mrs. I think we should call it Tzadekis from Horowitz. What she does in a day, halavai, we should do our whole lifetime in Chesed. It's unreal. It's just literally unreal. But so 99% is amazing. And there's so much positive. But I belong to this group. What happens if a guy is in a hospital somewhere that they don't have a proper Bikuch Cholim set up because there's no need for it. There's very few patients. And it's an hour before Shabbat, and they were rushed in, and now what? The people, three people, whoever's going to be there with the patient, everybody's stuck without kosher food for Shabbat. So on top of their suffering and their fear and this and that, they don't even have a bite. So there's a group that work under rabbinic guidance and very, very stringent kashrus standards and whatever else, that based on whoever lives closest to that hospital, if there's enough time to Uber over food to the place and whatever, they get it arranged. They have a system. And each time it's somebody else in a different situation. And one Friday, it was like 2 hours before Shabbat, and somebody posted a certain hospital, whatever, and right away a guy answered, sure, everything, beginning to end. Sometimes one lady says, I can give this, you can give that, and they pool it together somehow. Sometimes this one says, sure, everything. I know this guy. And I also know it didn't make sense strategically because the hospital's an hour and 35 minutes away from where we live. And there's so many people in the group that are closer. So I didn't say anything. I figured maybe he's looking for an extra mitzvah. But Friday night when I was in shul, it suddenly dawned on me, because he davens in the same shul as me, wait a second. 2 hours before Shabbos, even if his wife is superwoman, he has a lot of kids, and his house is always full of guests, and. Had she produce like Shabbos for a sick family that had to be sent that second, I said maybe she took it out of the freezer, but then the whole thing didn't make sense to me. So I went to him, and I told him, what's the deal? So he told me, you know what the deal is? Every last piece of food that my wife made for Shabbos, we packaged in 5 minutes and sent to there. And my wife wanted it done right, because she heard there's a few people, and she was scared if other people would do it, they would send too little or whatever. She wanted them to have. She sent them food probably for 30 people. He said down to emptying out the challahs of the closet, everything. Whatever was still possible to buy from the one store in Lakewood that's open till an hour before Adlakat Neot, I went to buy. And the rest, my whole family, including my 5-year-old, got together, and we had we're not lacking anything. You're welcome to come to my house and see what a beautiful meal we have tonight. Now put yourself in that woman's shoes. She stayed up Thursday night probably till 2 in the morning preparing. Made plans that she should have a calm Friday, right? That's why she stayed up the night before. And this and that, and had everything set up and everything arranged. And husband comes home from work and then is like, wow, what a beautiful house. And he's already planning his Eishes Chayil. And in 1 second, just by feeling, wait a second, is somebody stuck without something? Gives it all up without thinking twice, packages it all and starts all over again in the most chaotic situation 2 hours before you have to light candles. Sounds trivial to you? I don't know. Doesn't sound trivial to me because I don't know if I would have passed that test. That only comes from a huge noseh b'olim chavero, feeling somebody else's situation completely, and what I said earlier, when I come up to Shamayim after 120, is the excuse going to work? Well, maybe I'll be embarrassed to even say it. That's the measuring stick that I took upon myself in memory of that woman to use in every step of the way. And I want to tell you the end of my flat tire story, just because I think you'll get chizuk from this. See how Hashem pays you back. I have a car, it's not mine, but this car has these like fancy whatever wheels, and when you get flat tires in those cars, A, they claim that you can't fix them, and B, the prices are astronomical. And specifically this car and this tire, you had to go to a BMW dealer and have an appointment and this and that. And when I made a quick search online, just to get this wheel back in order so I can get my car back driving, it's not mine, but the car that I'm using back driving, was a story of an easy $700, probably more. A little insane, right? Yeah, my Ashkenaz friends say, see what happens when you drive German cars? And I didn't say that to be cynical, each one with his attitude and his way of thinking about it. But anyway, so the day that was their holiday, obviously everything was closed, there was nothing to do. The following day, I said, we got to deal with this. Now, I already made peace with the fact that we'll have to part with $600-700 that otherwise could have went to something better than that, and whatever. I don't know why Hashem gave me an idea that I'm not, instead of spending even more money on getting roadside assistance or waiting for hours and this and that, they claim it's safe to drive for a certain amount of miles because it's run flat. I have a Jewish friend who's in the neighborhood. He knows about cars. So at least they'll tell me what I'm getting into when I go into the dealer, so I'm not totally cheated because I'm clueless. You know, the dealer could tell me I need a new transmission. I would say, yeah, like, what do I know? I'm totally clueless. I stopped by him. He had a bunch of people there waiting. He tells me, listen, wait a little bit, but I'll help you. So I waited. In the meantime, we were talking while he was working. He enjoyed himself. Then he tells me, what do you come for? I said, listen, I have this issue with the tire, and there might be rim damage, and this and that. And it's not my car also, so it's not a joke. I have to make sure it's okay, 100%. And I really didn't come to you to fix it, because I don't know if you do this. I just came to you for advice, because when I go to fix it, I don't want to get ripped off. So what's the right way to go about it? So he tells me, this is your lucky day. So I said, what's my lucky day? He said, I'm in a good mood, so I'm willing to experiment something. He said, really, you would have to go to the whole hassle. And he said, it's actually more money than I thought, because he started explaining to me what else they're going to tell me I have to do. He said, but I just recently got this new item that I use a lot. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know the science of it yet to understand completely when yes, when not. But I think it's safe. I would use it. And it's a hit or miss. He says, in your case, the damage is very bad, so the probability is almost zero, but say Tehillim, I don't know. And he said, and if it's a cheap fix, it's $20. And you'll be on the road, you don't have to waste the rest of the day with this. He went to fix it. I didn't say Tehillim. You know what I said? I said, Ribono Shel Olam, I was planning on going to work. If this thing gets fixed, it really only costs me $20, and I don't have to go to dealers and waste my time. There's no work today. Instead, I'm going on to my group, and I'm available to drive somebody to a hospital, and I'm going to use the car to take somebody to a hospital instead. Do a chesed run. 6 minutes later, the guy walks out with a smirk on his face. He says, not even 20. It went so easy. It's on the house. Don't worry about it. You entertained me for a little bit. Get out of here. And I went to pick up a patient at Lo Aleinu. I had to go to the hospital straight. I don't know if I would have made more money working, more money like that, but instead of wasting money in some non-Jewish dealer, I was able to do chesed instead. Instant. But that comes from an attitude of, how far am I willing to push the limit? Now, of course, each one has to consult with a Rav. It's not simple. You're not allowed to just recklessly leave work like that. I'm my own boss. I have my own circumstances. But a regular person is not allowed to do things like that. But everybody has to ask their local rabbi what the criteria are. But we do have to care, and that's the most important part of the whole theme over here. Now let's go to the parasha, and with this we got the parasha puzzle. Where do we learn this all from the parasha? A Rashi that I would hope we all know. Rashi writes, "Vayigdal Moshe, vayitzer lechav vayar b'sivlotam." Moshe grew up. He went out to his brothers and he saw their pain. Comes Rashi and writes, that's a pasuk, right? Bet pasuk Yud Aleph, I think. Rashi writes, Natan einav v'libo liot meitzer aleihem. He put his eyes and his heart to feel their pain. What does that mean? Moshe Rabbeinu, it wasn't enough for him that he left the palace of Paro that he was living in to go out to the slums where the Jews were working and whatever. Even when he was there, he went to see and to be part of, to physically feel each one's pain. Unbelievable thing. And Chazal say, by the way, there's many midrashim in this week's parasha about this, that talk about that this is exactly why HaKadosh Baruch Hu made him who he is. There's a midrash that says, Vayar Hashem kisar lirot, that's written about the sneh. The midrash translates that pasuk different than what it says in the Torah. It says, Vayar Hashem kisar lirot, Hashem saw that he's a person that cares about the Jewish suffering. He said, I'm going to make you Moshe Rabbeinu. Meaning, the only person that the Torah writes about him, that there was never a prophet that got to his level by the Jews, by the Goyim Bilam, but otherwise by the Jews it was never. The only person who went up to heaven not once, 3 times, was able to see God face to face and come back. How did he merit it? Not by a siyum hashas, not by events, not by this, not by nothing. But that he went out to see people's pain. He cared about people's suffering. Vayar Hashem kisar lirot, that's the way the Midrash learns pshat in that. When Hashem sees a Jew caring about another Jew's suffering, then at that point, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're the right person. One of the examples, just to quote part of the Midrash, Vayar Hashem kisar lirot, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says, Ma'u kisar lirot, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Sar v'za'af hu lirot b'tzaran she'Yisrael b'Mitzrayim. He turned to see the pain and the suffering of Am Yisrael in Mitzrayim. Lefikach hu ra'ui liot ro'eh alehem. Therefore, he's the one who's worthy to be the leader of Am Yisrael. Miyad, the Midrash continues, Vayikra elav Elokim mitoch hasneh. Right away, HaKadosh Baruch Hu came and called them from the sneh. It's unbelievable. What made Moshe Rabbeinu? What made Moshe Rabbeinu? That he cared enough to think about somebody else's pain. And if that's what made Moshe Rabbeinu, it's obviously not an easy thing to do. Because if it would have been easy, you don't get rewarded like that for such a thing. Comes the Alter from Kelem and Chochmah Musa in the first chedek, and he says that Rashi writes, Natan Einav. What does it mean, Natan Einav? He put his eyes. Of course, you don't see without putting your eyes there. If your eyes are looking there and somebody's standing there, you're not going to see. And Rashi doesn't have extra words. So if Rashi has to write, he put the focus of his eyes. Natan Einav, he gave his eyes. Natan means he gave. It doesn't even mean he put. How did he give his eyes? He didn't take his eyeballs out and give it to somebody. So what does it mean? So the Alter from Kelem says an unbelievable thing. After he saw the physical pain and suffering of the Jews, he gave up his vision. What does it mean he gave up his vision? The only thing he ever saw through his eyes from there on for the rest of his life was the suffering of Jewish people. He never saw anything else again. That was what occupied his brain all the time. Natan Einav. He gave up his eyes, he gave up his vision, he gave up everything just to be able to see the tzar of Klal Yisrael. Normally we're the opposite extreme, right? We want to see happy things, not sad things. That's why we're not Moshe Rabbeinu. Unbelievable thing. Comes Rabbi Yerucham in that Torah and he says even further. He says, people think Noseh B'ol is if I feel a little sad that somebody else is going through a hard time, wow, I'm a tzaddik, Noseh B'ol. He says, you got it all wrong. He said, Noseh B'ol has to be also done in action. You have to A, feel the other person's pain, and B, do something physical to identify with the other person's pain. And one without the other is just a joke. It doesn't mean anything. Unbelievable, Rabbi Yerucham. It's a big chiddush. You have to understand why it works like that. But he says, without that, you're not mekayim the mitzvah. No. Rab Shalom Shvadron says over, it's brought down in the Sefer, the biography that was written on him, Kol Chotzev, but it's a very famous thing. He said it many times, so I'm sure there's other Sfarim that bring it down as well. One of the Sfarim that brings the Kol Chotzev down is the Ish L'Re'eh on the Chumash on Shemot, that Rab Shalom said over that once he saw, not he saw it, they found the Saba from Slabodka, Nosson Tzvi Finkel, right? See how the rabbis didn't just preach, they practiced. They lived by what they said. Standing outside a house of one of his students, praying and crying. That's a weird place to go pray. You pray by the kotel, not by somebody's wall of his house. So they went over to him and they said, Rebbe, what are you doing? So he said like this, yesterday this man told me that he has a big problem in his house. And I felt this pain, but I felt when I was praying for him, it wasn't wholeheartedly. And I realized that because there's a distance, a physical distance between his house and where I live, so that distance doesn't let me connect to the story enough. So I decided that today I'm going to walk over to the house and I'll see the house, and by seeing the house and seeing people coming in and out and the worry on their face and everything around it, the davening is going to be a different davening already. Let's be honest with ourselves. When we get a text message to read Tehillim for some boy who was just in an accident, which should never happen again, should go only on Sunday, so some people don't even care. Other people actually do read Tehillim, Baruch Hashem. But if you went to the hospital and saw that boy on a respirator, you think your Tehillim would be with a little more heart? Not a little, a lot more heart. It would be a whole different world. What's the difference? It's not a problem in you. That's the human nature. When you see something, the Gemara says, Riyah and Shmiyah, when you see something, is much more powerful than when you hear it. So when you hear somebody else's story, but you don't see it, it's much harder to identify it with it. When you see it, suddenly it's a whole new ballpark. And that's part of the mitzvah Bikur Cholim. The Rambam says when you go visit a sick person, even though you visited him, if you don't see it and it doesn't affect you to the point that it brings you to daven for him, and you daven that you should get better while you're there, then you weren't mekayim the mitzvah Bikur Cholim. It's one of the conditions that you need in order to do Bikur Cholim. That's the main part of the tefillah, that you see it, you feel it, you live it, and now you can go do it. Comes up Chaim Friedlander in the Sefer Siyach Chaim and says an unbelievable chiddush. This is a big yisod. It's a big yisod. Let's think about it. The lowest number possible, based on the calculations of people that were in Egypt at that time working when Moshe Rabbeinu went out, was 3 million. And it's probably way above that. But even if you want to go and downplay the number in every way and shape and form, take off Shevet Levi, take off this, take off that. After everything, the lowest number that you'll get to would be 3 million people that were suffering under the physical labor of the Egyptian decree. Moshe Rabbeinu was one person. Let's say he wanted to help Jews. One person can help 3 million people? No. So how did it even make sense for him to go out? What does it make a difference? There's 3 million people. What are you going to do? Why did he even start with this? Doesn't even make sense. Lo aleinu, it should never happen again. So we'll use an example from the past. Imagine in the 6-day war. One guy gets up and says, I'm going to fly to Israel and stop the war. We would all look like he's nuts. What? It's a war of countries. Bombs, planes, flying, tanks. You're one person. There's hundreds of thousands of people involved in this. What are you going to do exactly? Chazal HaKadoshim from here teach us the yesod that the power of being noseh b'olim chavero is so big that the reward for it is so great that yes, one person's care could save 3 million people. And Rav Chaim Friedlander takes it to a bigger extreme, that Hashem gave a person in his heart enough room to be able to carry the weight of 3 million other people. Because otherwise Moshe Rabbeinu wouldn't be able to do what he did. It's an unbelievable chiddush. Unbelievable chiddush. But Rav Chaim Friedlander says, how does that work practically? Practically, you can't help 3 million people. So he says a big yisod. He says people think help means physical help. That's also important. But there's help that's much more important. That's emotional help. And emotional help sometimes is hard, but a lot of times it's the easiest thing in the world. A lot of times, just the fact that somebody knows that somebody else cares can make the difference between a failing life and a successful life, can make the difference between suicide and heal. You don't understand. And I'm not going to start with stories because they'll never end, because I've been doing this for 19 years straight. But, a 1-minute phone call sometimes could literally save a life physically, not spiritually. Kalachom is spiritually. That's just because everybody needs to feel that they're cared for. That's a human need. Hashem made a person that needs that feeling, no matter what. And nobody could beat it. There is no way to beat that feeling. And if somebody doesn't feel that he's cared for, he can't live. That's a greater necessity than oxygen. And sometimes 30 seconds is all it takes. Some people have mental disorders and whatever, it's much more complicated with them already. But other people, 30 seconds. I can tell you on a day that my Rebbe calls me, when he was healthy, he used to happen pretty frequently. Now it's already hard for him to talk. I pick up the phone. It doesn't make my day better. My month is better. I don't know. And what did he say already? I don't have much time. I'm sorry. I've just called to see the kids are healthy. Everybody's healthy. Yeah. You doing okay? You need anything? I love you. Goodbye. Not even a bracha. Just unbelievable. The whole story is different. What is that? When somebody sincerely cares, just that expression. He said, Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't help 3 million Jews. There's no way to help 3 million Jews. But he went there to show them, I physically can't do your work instead of you, but I care about each and every one of you as an individual. And just that feeling alone gave them the strength to continue fighting and to survive their situation. If we look good in halakha, there's many ways to prove this. At the whole mitzvah of Nichum Avelim is because of that. If you look in the chinuch especially, Nichum Avelim, what are you going to tell somebody who lost a relative? There's nothing to say. That's why the mitzvah is not to say. But just the fact that you showed up shows that you care. And that helps a person. They don't feel so alone anymore. They just lost somebody. So instead, we bring a lot of people to the house so they should feel that they're people that actually care. And their loss maybe can't be replaced, but at least they're not alone. There's still something there. Comes Reb Chaim Shmulevitz and he says, he takes it to the biggest extreme. And we ran out of time, so this will have to end, even though I really have some good stories. Bless you. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says, it's brought down in a kuntus called Moach Valev. It's less popular from the writings of Reb Chaim and Perek Yud. The old timers know the Sefer well. It's been out of print for a lot of years. In Moach Valev it says that he says sharp words. Maybe I should quote and translate. Sakalim, that means fools, svurim, think, shelaset bo'ol, that carry the weight, pirusho rak la'azor lasheni, it means to help somebody. כשאדם נפצע, כבר חבשו אותו, מעתה הוא כבר לעשות הכל בכוחות עצמו, בלי מאמץ נוסף. אבל עדיין בעל ייסורים, לעזור אי אפשר. This is an interesting example that he chose. Let's say somebody tripped outside, law, that shouldn't happen. Only the Son of Israel. And he broke his leg. And you happen to be a medic. So you go, you take care of him, you bring him to the hospital, they put him on a cast. At that point, you feel like a hero, my job's done. Chaim Shmulevitz says, no, you missed the whole boat. That is ABC, it's humanity, anybody would do that. He says, what's noseh b'olim chavero? Even after they put on the cast, there's still pain. Somebody's post-surgery. For days, you could have pain. Noseh b'olim chavero is the first part is to make sure that the leg is fixed. But the second part is that as long as he's in pain, even though he can function 100% by himself, that you show him that you identify with the pain too. And unfortunately, a greater crisis than the opiate crisis itself is the outcome of the opiate crisis. That patients that need pain medication today in many hospitals can't even get them anymore because right away everybody's looked at as a drug addict who's looking for a fix, and we suddenly don't give pain meds to people. And it's a big crisis. The emotional part of doctors that used to be a little more compassionate towards people's physical suffering, not their medical condition per se, just the physical element of the pain, is drastically reduced in the US, and there are tons of studies that prove it in the past year. And it comes from not their fault, from them being handicapped as a result of a serious tragedy of an addiction. But Jews know how to find the balance between where we have to be strong and where we have to be super soft. Because the Chaim says, you were just a doctor. You saved the guy's limb. You got him better. Your job's not done. He's still suffering, but it still hurts him. You got to make sure he's okay. You got to split the pain with him. Comes Reb Chaim and continues and he writes, Aset la'ol pirush hadavar kipshuto. What it means, Aset la'ol, is exactly the way the words go. Litchalek b'masa, to split the weight. K'shasheni noseh chavila, when if somebody else is carrying a heavy box, for example, package, everybody understands that you help him out, give him a hand, right? If a guy was carrying a big table alone and you saw him tripping, what would you do? You would give him a hand and together you can carry it. Comes Reb Chaim and says, if somebody's carrying the weight of emotional suffering, he's going through yisur, he's struggling in life. Tzarich lehatot et alev. Just like, with the table, you would give him a hand. If somebody's going through emotional suffering, you have to give him your heart. And let me tell you, in the roughest times in life, when somebody's actually there and cares, it saves a life. And it gives people hope, and it makes people continue on. And when people walk into doctors' offices and felt not cared for, aka therapists that are working on the clock and 45 minutes later your time's up, get out of here until next week, not only doesn't it help, it destroys them forever. Because then they realize there's no hope. Humanity doesn't care, there's no compassion anymore. And the day we lose compassion is the day we lose everything that has to do with humanity. Reb Chaim takes it further, and with this I want to conclude, even though it's a shame, I have good stories, but all right, I guess next week. The Gemara says in Bava Batra, and Daf Tet Zayin Amud Bet, it's a Gemara that we all know, but maybe not exactly, we miss one word in it. The Gemara says, O chavruta kechavra de'Iyov, either a person has a partner in life, chavruta we think means a study partner, that's not pshat. Chavruta means a partner, somebody that we do life together with, like the friends of Iyov. Or, what would we think it should be, or the alternative is? What does it mean, the friends of Iyov? Iyov went through all the hell in the world, he lost his kids and his money, and he still had 3 friends that stayed his loyal friends. When you're doing well financially and you're popular and everything's working in life, you're surrounded by friends. Let me tell you, I was on top and on the bottom of the financial scale more than once in my life. And swings of numbers that most people just dream about. And in the years that I was way up there, I would get 60 to 200 phone calls every Friday from all the rabbis in America and Israel, Shabbat Shalom, as did, all the nonsense. And as soon as I lost my money at one point, a week later, nobody existed anymore except for two. And then the funny thing is, when I made my money back, suddenly the phone calls started coming again. I was like, what? Isn't this transparent? Isn't this disgusting? Isn't this like what's going on over here? It doesn't. Comes of Chaim Shalev. So what would we think? O chavuta ki Yov. Maybe you can get friends like Yov, and that will be with you through thick and thin, good times and bad times. Or if you can't get that, at least some sort of friends. The Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says if you don't have friends that will be with you through thick and thin in life, the alternative to that is o mituta. You're not going to be able to live, you will die. That's why Reb Chaim reminds the Gemara. Now you understand what it means to be a friend to somebody, to care about somebody? You're keeping them alive. You're their heart, not their pacemaker. When you went and showed somebody that you care about them, you are their life. You gave them a reason to live. You gave them a chance for a better tomorrow. And there's medical studies that could prove it in many, many ways as well. All the medical benefits, especially for people that go through illnesses, that they have when they have a support system around them and positive influence and they hear positive things and whatever. And this is not a chumrah. This is not a taz and a magen Avraham, and there's not somebody coming and asking, do I have to keep Kemach Yashan or not? And before you look for all your interesting things, and I'm not downplaying Kemach Yashan, I don't know, I'll ask your local posek what's applicable or not. I do know that the list that people go by, Rav Yaakov Yagen warned the person who puts out the list that he's not allowed to publish it. That I do know, firsthand. But before we look for all these interesting situations in life, Parak Shiras and Shira Shirims and this and that, maybe we should cut a lot of that out and utilize a lot of that time to actually think about other people. And suddenly you see, you become a better person. By the way, you literally, it changes you. It changes your perspective on life. It changes everything. I've benefited from the young kids that I helped in pediatric ICU in the past few years, thousands of times more than they benefited from me. Because they were young. I don't know if they knew what they were going through. Many of them were in situations that they were in induced comas and other things, and they probably don't even know I was there. And even if they did know, they won't remember because they were so young. But when I walked through those halls, and I was humbled time and time again about the miracles that God makes, and about how much suffering there is in the world, and how when you're a compassionate person, it actually makes you value your own life so much better. Then suddenly when somebody cut me off on the road, it didn't bother me. And if something else went wrong, it didn't bother me. And if a guy cheated me in business, I didn't even sue him. And so what? Suddenly all the day-to-day becomes so lax and easy. Who cares? This happened, that happened. It's a weird story. I pulled out of the hospital and I was beyond tired. And that's the only reason why I did this. I'm a big believer in following traffic laws and regulations and not doing stupid things on the road. I think they were made for a reason. There's no reason to endanger yourself or anybody else. But I was beyond tired. I came out of the parking lot. Even though I do this many times, unfortunately too many times a month, to help people. It must have been I wasn't paying attention, and I made the wrong turn. Instead of making a right, which is the direction of the road over there, it's a one-way, I made a left. Against the one-way. Now it's a narrow, small street. It's only one block. It's not the end of the world. It's not like I was, but it wasn't done purposely. It was a total, I couldn't see. To my luck, there was a cop who was parked exactly on the corner, and to him, this is a happy day, right? This is a big no-no. He right away put on his lights and sirens. I wasn't even fazed by it. I stopped the car very nicely. I prepared the license and registration insurance before. I just wanted to get this over with. I wanted to get home, give me my ticket, let me get home, and yeah, I did something wrong. I have no problem with it. I'm totally cool with it. The guy comes to the window, and before he even says anything, I stick the paperwork out. He tells me I don't need it. I have a question for you first. He says, what? He says, I don't know who you are, what you're going through in life, or what your story is, but you don't look like a crazy person. You don't look drunk and you don't look high. I was like, thanks for the compliment, officer. And these days, that's already a step. I'm trying to think in my mind to process quickly, to be ahead of him, what's coming next. And what came next shocked me. He said, I was at the corner. There's no way that you didn't see me. So you see a cop waiting and you go against the one way? Like, there's either a reason or you're crazy. There's no middle road. So before I take your license, maybe you can explain me. So I tell him, officer, would you see straight if you just spent 16 hours going from child to child, that each one is in a worse medical condition than the next, and trying to explain to parents that there's hope and they shouldn't give up and hopefully one day they'll come home with a healthy child? He said, honestly, I'd probably commit suicide 2 hours in. That's what he answered me. He was a public service official. It's a little crazy to answer that. I think it's against protocols. I think it's illegal to answer that, by the way. Because right, it's a criminal act to commit suicide technically in the US, and an officer is not allowed to talk about a criminal act. But anyway, I said, well, I just did about 16 hours of that. And I believe in respecting rules. You're more than welcome to check my license. I have a very, very squeaky clean record of driving. I just simply don't see at this point. And now you're going to ask me a good question, how are you driving home? It's not safe. The answer is you're right, but I don't have a driver. What should I do? And the same God that got me is going to get me home, and I'm, between Red Bull and the window open and the cold weather or whatever, I'll make it home somehow. And if I feel it's not safe to drive, I'll pull over to the side. I do it all the time. And that's the answer. Now, does that excuse what I did? No. So if you want to give me a ticket, now do me a favor. I answered you. Let's make it quick. And the guy looks at me and he says, what, are you crazy? You're my hero. Are we going to give you a ticket? He says, the problem is you're against traffic over here, and to get you into traffic's a mess. So give me a minute. Goes out to the road, stops the whole intersection that I want to go into, keeps everybody waiting, like a prince, waves to me, as like his goodbye salute. I became his new hero, and sends me on my way. You know what? I look up to that guy, not only because I feel good that I got away with a ticket that I deserved, but that didn't come from being nice. That came from somebody who had some genuine compassion in it. He actually thought about it, like it actually hit home. And you see that in life. When you see situations that are at the edge, you suddenly realize that the trivial things, if I would have got a ticket, big deal. You think I would have cared at that point? Let these kids come home healthy. This is what's important. And another point, a less point, $100, $200, that's what we're busy getting angry over all day. And that's why I think that when a person becomes a person of Noseh B'Ol, it's very hard. But at the same time, it makes you a happier person and a better person. Because on one hand, you feel terrible pain. But on the other hand, you feel very blessed for the person that you are and for what you're able to provide for others. Because Baruch Hu should help that Am Yisrael should have no more tzar, and nobody should ever have to be Noseh B'Ol b'tzar im chaveru anymore. Amen v'amen.